Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Sivonnia de Barros.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. What Are You Sporting About podcast. I am your host, Sivonnia de Barros, the protector of athletes. I'm also the founder and principal attorney of the S.L. de Barros Law Firm, where we represent 6- and 7-figure business owners and athletes in business. Today, I have an amazing guest, Dr. Greg Dale. Let me give you a little bit of background about him, and then we're just going to dive right into it. So Dr. Greg is the director of sports psychology and leadership for Duke Athletics. He's also the professor of sports psychology and sports ethics at Duke. And he focuses on leadership, team culture, and psychology of performance in sports and business. In addition to working with athletes and coaches at Duke, he also works with athletes and coaches at high school level, professional, and Olympic levels. He's also a fellow author who has written 5 books. I don't know where he finds the time, but he's written 5 books on performance, leadership, and parenting of athletics, with a 6th on the way. Welcome to the show, Dr. Greg.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So is there anything I missed? Anything you want to add and let people know a little bit more about who you are?
Yeah, well, I feel like I have a great job. I get to work every day with people who are working very hard to try to maximize their potential, whether it be a college student athlete or professional athletes or corporate executives. And every day it's new, it's different, and I feel very fortunate to get to do that.
That is awesome. So I want to really open this up and ask you your opinion of the question, what are you sporting about? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I love that. I love that. And what are you sporting about is, God, it means so many different things. But I think that what are you doing to try to maximize your potential? What are you doing to try to take the things that you can learn in sport? I also think there are things you learn in sport that will absolutely help you in everyday life, for sure.
I love that. And I love asking this question to different people because our perspectives are so different, right? And the way we grew up and our experiences are so different that the answers are just so beautiful. But I can see that from this question, maximizing your potential, taking different aspects that you learn from sport to take into your life, right? Overall, and apply those same skills. Yep. That is amazing. So you are at one of the top universities in the country, Duke. Tell me, what is the most enjoyable part of your work at Duke University?
Yeah, well, there's no question I'm privileged to be here and walk across campus regularly and remind myself how fortunate I am. A country boy from rural Texas and Alaska and ended up at Duke. I'm very fortunate to be here. And the thing I really enjoy every day is my interaction with the athletes, the student athletes, and just really trying to be a resource for them. And it's very satisfying when I see them are challenged with different things and I see them work on those things and I see them overcome whatever challenges they might have and help them be successful. Or when I see a coach and I've kind of challenged them that, you know what, you're way too emotional. And there's a difference between being emotional and being intense. And intense means you care. It's important to you. We've worked really hard for this. Emotional is much more reactionary. You say things that you might later regret. And I think you create an environment where people are more afraid to screw up than not. And so when I see them start to learn to control their emotions and free people up to just do their thing is pretty rewarding.
That's a good point that I want to touch on about coaches being too emotional versus intentional on what it is or the skill that they're trying to develop in the athlete. I see a lot, especially even at the Pop Warner level, it's almost like conditioning for the athlete, right? So as a literally a baby, you're getting yelled at these people on how to run this ball, how to make this play, whatever the situation may be. And so as they move from one level to the next, and now you're in college and you have athletes who have been doing this, is you've been conditioned to in a sense, almost kind of take abuse, right? Yes. And so that plays a huge part into mental health as well. From that perspective, would that have an impact, or have you seen it have an impact on athletes being able to properly perform under, not even just under the pressures of the game, but the pressures of the coach?
Without question. You're right. They get conditioned from a pretty early age that my coach is going to yell at me. My coach is going to scream at me. My coach is going to belittle and humiliate me in front of my friends. And, I think coaching, and I'm a former coach myself, and I made a lot of mistakes when I was coaching, but there's an art to being an effective coach. And you got to be able to challenge them and hold them accountable, be demanding, absolutely. But can you do that without destroying or undermining their confidence, or can you still treat them with dignity and hold them accountable? And I would argue the best ones are able to do that. And there's no question that the higher you go as an athlete, the more pressure you feel to be able to perform. And when coaches add that in there, it just exacerbates it. It makes it even more challenging. And where I work every day in the college level, I would argue there's not very many other places in the country where there's more potential for the abuse of power than there is between a coach and an athlete. Because in the pros, those athletes will tell you to, stick it where the sun don't shine, so to speak, if you talk to me like that. At younger ages, many times parents are more involved, and maybe sometimes more than they should be. But in college, athletes don't have much of a say-so, don't have much, very much of an ability to push back. And, I'm continually trying to educate coaches about how to not abuse that power.
Yeah, I love that because, okay, so your background is in psychology, of course. So you're always thinking about how things affect the person from a deeper mental health perspective. And I would not have thought of it that way. The largest abuse of power is from a coach to an athlete, which makes sense, actually, when you put it into perspective, right? You have a lot of college athletes. And this is part of the reason why I wrote the book, What Are You Sporting About? But these athletes are most of them are hoping to make it pro, right? And they're willing to possibly do almost anything to make sure their ticket is bought. And so in a way, they haven't really figured out what they were sporting about. They think the entire notion is around sports, like getting to the professional playing level, and therefore they will succumb themselves to the mental pressures and mental abuse that otherwise, had a particular coach had the proper counseling and education, you know what I'm saying, and mentoring to help these athletes, that athlete probably would not even agree to succumbing to some type of mental torture that way.
That's right. You're exactly right. And look, there are a lot of really, really good coaches out there. So I don't want to paint all coaches that way, but there are more than we should have.
Yeah.
That you're right, that particularly in basketball and football, for instance, where if athletes feel like that this coach can help me get to the next level, then I'm going to put up with a lot more. I'm going to allow them to abuse that power, because I'm still going to have a chance. I have another goal in mind here, and if they can help me get that, then I'm willing to do that. We give them a pass, and again, I just think it's really unfortunate. Coaches get away with a lot that you wouldn't be able to get away with in any other industry.
Yeah, I'm one of the fortunate, well, I can say myself and a lot of my other former track mates, but even from high school to college, I mean, the coaches I've had, I even put them in my book, like coaches are mentors in a lot of ways. And I think sometimes too, people end up becoming a mentor, even when you didn't think that you were a mentor, right? And so even with that type of behavior, we rub off onto people. And if you're with a kid for 4 years in college, I'm sorry, something's rubbing off.
Yeah.
Something's going to rub off. And how you treat that student, they're probably going to go out and treat their classmates or their teammates or people at home the same way that they have been treated, because that's what they've seen on a regular day-to-day basis. It's now become a habit, right? But I can definitely say my coaches were some of the best people that I've had in my life, to be great mentors that taught me things that I didn't even know I was being taught until I look back years later and say, oh, wow, okay, I get it.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah. And I think even in college, coaches can have an impact on kids' character. They can have an impact on their growth and development. And again, the better ones, truly, it's interesting when I ask coaches, even at the college level, how do you define success? They always say it's about developing young men and women for life. They say all the politically correct things, right? But then their actions many times show something very different. I say, you should never apologize for wanting to win, but where does winning fit into your definition of what a successful coach is? And they all say, well, it's not the most important thing, but your actions show something very different. When an athlete messes up, how do you treat them? Or when you're belittling and humiliating them in front of everybody, or you sort of break you break your standards to let your star get away with things that you might not let somebody else, because they can help you win. And unfortunately, the ego is kind of the one thing I think gets coaches in trouble sometimes, is that when it's too much about you. And coaches go through different stages during their careers, and some coaches never get out of that success mode where it's about me, and they use a lot of I statements and my team and and they take credit for when things go well. But the best ones are those true servant leaders. They understand that these athletes aren't here to make me look good. They're not here to help me grow and develop or get to the next level. I'm here to help them grow and develop. And the great ones are those. And it sounds like you had some coaches that were in that place where they were serving you guys.
Yep, exactly. I want to touch on something, as you said, sometimes coaches get so caught up in winning. And so I think in a way they try to use this reverse psychology in terms of, really beating in something to the athlete to hype them up and get them excited, or, really pounce on them about what they've done wrong. But I just want to remind people something that I was reminded of actually several days ago about what Mandela said, like a quote from him. He said, I never lose.
Yeah.
I either win or I learn. Right. Yeah. And I know for me, I don't respond to people yelling at me. But if you sit me down, you can be as assertive as necessary, right? Mean what you say, but point out what are the good things that I did right? And then what did I do wrong? And how can we change that? How can we really analyze what I did wrong? Because now that's the learning part. So now when it's reintroduced, I know what I need to do to avoid the losing part of it. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And if you think about it, like particularly at the college level and the pro level, most coaches weren't trained as educators. They weren't trained in leadership. They were economic majors or they were history majors, and then they get into the coaching profession. And often we coach the way we were coached. And it's leadership 101 that if you ask anyone, how many of you thrive on being belittled or humiliated in front of other people? No one's going to raise their hand. Nobody does that. And again, it's not about being soft. It's not about being that we're going to just cuddle you and we're going to be tough and we're going to be demanding, but you can do it without making it personal. You can do it without this idea that I'm going to humiliate you in front of all your friends right now. Because if you think about it, how would that coach respond if the athletic director humiliated them all the time in front of their colleagues? And then they ask him to do the extra. I need you to give me this extra. You're thinking, screw you.
Motivation.
Because it's my job, but I'm not going to do it because my heart's not going to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I know coaches feel a lot of pressure to win, and I get it. Well, your chances of winning are going to be better if you're able to capture people's hearts and you're able to get them to want to buy into what you're doing and want to follow you because you've built up this emotional equity with them. They know you care. They know you're coming from a good place. They know you have their best interest in mind. I'm going to want to go the extra mile if I believe that about my coach.
Absolutely. I literally wrote on my paper, losing the passion, equals stigma, because like if you have people are belittling you, you are stigmatized in a way, and then what happens in the locker room amongst your peers? The coach is on you. Then your peers are blaming you because you've done something because the coach has been on you. Right. And so now you're stigmatized. You have no motivation to want to move forward, really. And I think a lot of people, too, sometimes will end up losing the passion and just kind of go through the motions because this is where they are. Right. They have to make something work.
Yeah.
And especially if we're looking at athletes who are coming from less than well-to-do communities, you got to stick it out. You got to you're there to make something happen. And unfortunately is like the entire family, their entire community is on your back. Right. And so, you're being forced to work without passion, without passion in a sport that you actually came in loving, but now there's no drive there. So I want to take that and ask you, what made you interested in sports psychology and leadership? Because this is huge. You're the first person I've spoke to from a psychology background, especially with sports. I want to ask, what made you interested in this field?
Yes. First thing, real quickly, your point about the pressures people feel. Think about that when you go in and you love the sport, and at some point you start to lose your passion for what you're doing. And you feel that pressure that you got to continue to do it to be there for your family and to try to provide a better opportunity for them. That's a huge burden to have to deal with. But I was a former athlete and I was going to be a coach and a teacher. I thought that's kind of what I wanted to do. But I took a class in my master's program that really literally changed my trajectory. And I said, wow, I could still be a coach, so to speak, but do it in a different way. And really this was when I started doing it, it wasn't as well known and well accepted. And that I thought that I could make a difference in that way, that I could coach the coaches, but I could also coach the athletes and just try to help them simplify things and reduce the stress and pressure so that they can free themselves up to just go do what they spend these hours and hours and hours training themselves to go do. And then sometimes their mind absolutely in the way of allowing them to do that.
Yeah.
So that really intrigued me and felt like I could make a difference that way.
That's awesome. And it's funny how I always tell people, they say, well, what made you want to be a business or sports entertainment lawyer, right? But when I went into law school wanting to be a criminal attorney. Look, I was in a contracts class and my contracts professor, broke stuff down and made it so interesting. And it changed my whole mindset around law, because the initial reason why I wanted to be a criminal attorney is because, number one, I didn't like the injustices that I saw against African-American people. But then I realized, oh my gosh, there's so many injustices that are happening on the business level, contracts level, you know what I'm saying, sports level, that people don't really think of. And so I love what you said, because you can still serve, but sometimes our service just looks a little bit differently. We still kind of do the same thing. It just look a little different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people, here there's a lot of pressure to figure out what you're going to do when you're 19 years old, and you got to figure it all out. You got to know. And man, I didn't really know until I was like 23, and really started switching my focus to that. So I totally agree with you that it can look a lot different than maybe what you originally thought it was going to look like.
Sure. Yeah. And be welcome to the change too, because it's just, you're growing.
Yes.
You're growing. Yeah. So I want to ask you, what are some of the keys that athletes can effectively use to manage their stress and any pressures that come with high level performance?
Yes. So, we typically feel pressure when we're too focused on certain things. For instance, and by the way, pressure, anything you ever do in life that's considered to be great, I would argue is going to be filled with pressure. You can go through your whole life and be mediocre and not really feel pressure. So, but if you're trying to pursue greatness, there's going to be some things that come along with that can create pressure. Number one is expectations, that sometimes we get too caught up in expectations of other people, perhaps, or like in the major leagues in baseball, for instance, people go in their rookie year and they have a great rookie year because they don't really have any expectations. I'm just happy to be here, right? And then in the off season, they start thinking about their numbers and why I did this and I did that, and now this year I need to do this to get better. And now every at bat, all of a sudden becomes so much more important, and they make such a big deal about it because they're so focused on those expectations. And expectations can get in the way sometimes of allowing you to just trust yourself to do your thing. The next place is if we're too focused on being scrutinized, like if we're too focused on what other people think, for instance, hyper aware of what outside people, how they view me, and how I'm being analyzed. The third one is consequences. If I'm too focused on the consequences of not performing well, so if I mess this up, what's going to happen? We can start to feel more pressure. And so I really try to help athletes manage those things. It's about, if you're going to be great, there's going to be expectations. You're going to be scrutinized. And there are going to be consequences if you don't do well. So it's all about learning how to manage that and recognizing it when it's happening and you feel it in your stomach or you feel it in your chest or your mind starts to go crazy, and recognizing it that's happening, and let's name it. Here's why it's happening, because I care about what these people think. I don't want to let them down, or this is going to impact my contract, or we go ahead and put it out there. It's kind of back here. We're going to put it out here and name it and bring it out into the forefront and deal with it and remind them that it's okay, that it's kind of how I'm wired. That's important to me. Mm-hmm. I can't control that. What I have control over, and I'm really good if I just focus on being relaxed, or if I'm fluid, or if I'm aggressive, all those other things will take care of themselves. And so trying to teach them, we talk to people all the time about relaxing, and I try to teach them how to relax and how to keep your focus to the things that are more relevant, that you are in control of, that can help you perform in those kinds of situations.
Whoa, Dr. Greg, what do I send the donation plate around? The tithing donation or something. This is so good.
Yeah, I realize I can preach a little bit sometimes.
Man, this is so good. And in each and every key that you dropped, I could see myself. And I always share with people, I had a meeting this morning and we were talking about this. I tell people, so when I wrote What Are You Sporting About, the book inspired the podcast. But before I even wrote the book, I was so afraid of, what are people going to say? What are all the folks the big heads in sports are going to say about this book? Are they going to scrutinize it? And nothing is even written on the page. I'm already worried about what other people are going to say, how they're going to judge me, right?
Yes.
And then I had these huge expectations for myself. I had to move all of that out of the way because I was creating this level of fear that was just, it didn't even make any sense, right? It was getting in the way of me performing. And we're not even talking about in a sports, in a game, right? It was getting in the way of professional performance. And I had to go tell myself for 2020 that you have to move forward with no fear. So anyone who listens to this podcast, who has been following me at least for, a good year, have heard me say, I had to go with the mantra, no fear, and have been telling myself that. I get nervous. And you're right. There's pressure with everything. There was pressure when I messaged you. I was like, hey, I want you on my podcast. Is this man going to say yes or no to me?
Right. Yeah.
There's so much pressure, but we can psych ourselves out from realizing greatness that we can all achieve because we are so worried about what other people are going to say, what are the expectations that other people may even just have for us, or what we have for ourselves, which sometimes may not even be a reasonable expectation in the moment. Like you gave the example of the rookies, right? You're doing so well in your rookie year because you went out and you had fun. Yeah. What happened to that for the rest of your career? Like, even as a lawyer, I want to have fun. I want to have fun with my clients. And when I have fun with my clients and I can be me with my clients, we get so much done because the pressure now has died down to perform well, that when we're having fun, we are already performing well.
Yes. Yeah. So you preach it, sister, because you're saying the same thing. I'll donate right back to you. So I totally agree with you. If you think about it, if you would have continue to let that fear of failure, or that fear of what people are going to think, that could have stifled you, and you wouldn't have taken a chance to try to be great, right? You wouldn't have taken a chance to write that book, which has led to your podcast, which has led to these other things. And it's real. And I think we tend to either beat ourselves up about it and would say, God, why do you care so much? Or why are you afraid to fail? Or we deny it and say, I don't care what people think. And you can't do either one of those. It's just kind of how we're wired, and it's a natural response to those things. But you can absolutely learn to manage it. And I also love what you said about that you like to have fun. And when you're having fun with your client, see, the performance will take care of itself. The outcome will take care of itself. I truly believe that. But what you did there is you trusted yourself to just go have fun. A lot of people will say to me, Greg, it's easy to be relaxed and have fun when you're performing well. What I would say is we got to reverse that formula. We got to focus on being relaxed and having fun, which will in turn help you have a better chance to perform well. Mm-hmm. In low pressure moments, because we think about expectations too much, or the consequences, or what other people are going to think. Now all of a sudden we got to be special. I got to be perfect. I have to be spectacular. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. Yourself. You got to trust that you're really, in your case, you got to trust that, hey, you're really good and this is a conversation, Greg, I would have this conversation with Greg. You're really good when you just focus on having fun and staying relaxed. Man, you're really good when you do that. So let's go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh my God, I love it. So now there is this huge wave of name, image, and likeness coming.
Yes.
And these are going to be nuggets that athletes need to utilize in the entrepreneurial aspect of their lives, because as a student athlete, I don't even think they realize that they're already entrepreneurs. You're managing so many different things. But now here's the added pressures of, can I get this endorsement? Can I get this deal, right? Can I get this setup that's going to help me whether I make it pro or not? Right. Woo, what's that's going to look like?
Yeah, you're right. And look, I think it's the commercialization of college sports. We can say that we should go back to what it used to be, but in big time college sports, it is commercialized.
Yeah.
And it's about time that the athletes that are generating all this revenue have opportunities to be able to, we're not taking money from the university, but be able to do some things based on my name and my image and my likeness. It's about time that they've been able to have an opportunity to do that. But you're right. Along with that comes some added stress and other distractions and other things. And many of those things, again, are the things that they're not going to have control over. And so any athletes that's out there that's going to go through this, and they need to make sure they surround themselves with people that are going to help them and that have their best interests in mind, obviously. But they need to, again, always keep bringing it back to, what am I in control of? At the end of the day, what I'm in control of is how I perform, what I do, and how I do my thing, and the image that I'm putting out there. I'm in control of that at some level. Am I making good choices about the things that I put out on social media? Am I making good choices that help me with that? And if you focus on those things, it's going to help alleviate some of that stress. And you got to trust that at the end of the day, some of it's left up to fate. Some of it is, it really is. But what are you in control of?
Mm-hmm.
Much of your energy on that as possible. That's the best thing that you can do, I
think. Yeah. And, it reminds me of something you said earlier when I asked you, what are you sporting about? What does that mean to you? And you said, taking some of the things that you learned from sports into your life, right? And so when you're dealing with the name, image, and likeness aspect of sports, which is technically your business part of the sport, it's going to require that you take some of those aspects that you've learned from being an athlete into now being an entrepreneur, in business. And you said managing your brand. Like, do people even like you? Because I'm gonna tell you, one thing that turns me off the most is an arrogant person.
Yeah.
An arrogant person. I mean, you can be so amazing, but if you're so arrogant and you feel like you rise above anybody and you don't have to answer to anyone, I know we can't connect. And so now you're looking at bigger brands who may want to take a chance on you. They're probably going to look and say, okay, is this someone I can vibe with? Can I really collaborate with this person? Will they listen? Like, can I talk to them and tell them what my concerns are? Will they give feedback? Will they be open to that? And it's so weird that, not weird, but it's amazing that this is happening for athletes. But I also feel like some of these conversations have not taken place with them from a cultivation standpoint of the athlete. We were talking about the coaches and how they coach these athletes and some of the things that they use, the psychology part of it to get them to perform. But what about the communication aspect? What about, the characterization of the person, how other people perceive you? Because now that's going to be an integral part of who gets the endorsement, who's being sponsored, who's the face of an app, for example,
Yeah. And, some people, the purists, so to speak, would say, it's a shame that we have to think about this, but we do need to think about it. And we do need to educate these folks about how to do that properly. Mm-hmm. And, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, says your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room.
True.
Think about it. Most of the jobs you ever get in your life, you're not sitting in the room when they decide whether to hire you or not. When you go to a college, that you're not in the room when they decide whether they're going to admit you or not. Most of those decisions are based on your brand, based on what you present, based on how you come across, and are you, like you said, humble, and are you someone that we can work with and that represents what we're doing really well. And so I think we got to get kids to be deliberate, to really think about that. It needs to be authentic, obviously. And I'd say be yourself unless you're a jerk, right? Yeah. You can't do that, right? But you try to be authentic, right?
Yep, I agree. You have to be authentic. And this is why this conversation is important too, because you don't know what opportunities are going to come down the road. This is why you must know what you're sporting about. If you have the dream to work in sports for your life, fine. But know that there will be another level to your life than just being an athlete, right? And so even being able to find yourself in the opportunity of the name, image, and likeness part of sports is so important that you're not just kind of jumbling around. If we're talking to the college athlete right now, you shouldn't be running trying to figure out, oh my God, what am I going to do for name, image, and likeness? Because part of who you are and being authentic and what your goals are is something that you should be developing always. My mom always tell me, never put all your eggs in one basket, right? So I've always wanted to be an Olympic athlete. That didn't happen for me. But I always wanted to be a lawyer too, you know what I'm saying? So I was able to achieve that goal. But had I put all my eggs in one basket, I don't know what would have happened to me. I would have been having similar stories that other athletes have, that, they didn't know what to do with their time, or they were depressed and they didn't want to do anything else because all they had ever known of themselves was that they were an athlete. And it's the most mythic type of statement someone can tell you, because you're not just an athlete. I mean, you are so many different things to so many different people. And so now I think name, image, and likeness is making these athletes realize there are other opportunities that you need to be aware of, right?
Yes. And if there are any parents out there of athletes that are listening to this, that I think it's really important for you as parents, I'm a parent myself, to help your kids have other identity. Where else do they get their self-worth from? They only get it from who they are as an athlete. Well, life's going to be great when you're riding that wave, but what happens when you get injured, or what happens when you lose playing time, or what happens when your career's over and it's ended shorter than you want it to be? Very few of us are Ray Lewis, who's MVP of the Super Bowl, winning as you go out in glory. Very few people end their careers like that. So we want, from a parent early on, you want your kids thinking about where else do they get their self-esteem from. I also think I'm always trying to help our student athletes, try to help them think about what else do you have going on in your life and who you are as an athlete. I heard a professional athlete, a Hall of Fame football player, say one time when someone interviewed him and after he just retired and said, "Boy, aren't you going to miss being a football player?" And he said, "I'm going to miss being around all these guys and the camaraderie that comes with that." But he said, "My mom taught me early on I'm not a football player. I play football. I ran track. I did this." And he said that, that might be a matter of semantics, but football does not completely define who I am. I did it, and I did it with everything I had. So it's just a little thing, but you could start to think about, I run track. I play football. Yeah. I also go to school. I also do this. I do this. It's a very important part of my life, but it does not completely define
who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard, but
yeah. And we shouldn't be so willing to put our own selves into these limiting boxes either. Right.
Yes.
So it's all about perspective. Like, I love the statement that I'm not a football player. I play football. It's just one of the things that I do. That's absolutely amazing, because as we grow and as we develop as people, or we become a spouse with someone, or we become a parent, like, we're always developing and changing into different people. And I can say, even from my own perspective, being a mom, I have a toddler, that has changed a lot about who I am, especially with my patience, honey, because previously I didn't have any.
Yes. Yes, it's helped you. Right? You've grown and developed as a result of that. Yeah. And some people might be thinking, well, you got to put everything in there in order to try to have a chance to be great. It is hard to have balance in your life. If you're trying to pursue greatness in something, some things have to give. But I would tell you can do some little things difference, like having hobbies outside of what you're doing, being able to say, I play football or I play basketball, as opposed to saying I'm a football player or I'm a runner, whatever that is. And I think you can do some things to learn how to be where your feet are, so to speak, and compartmentalize your life. And while you're there, you give it everything you have, but you have a post-competition or a practice routine where you think about what went well, what didn't go well, and what's my plan for tomorrow or next time I'm in that situation, what I'm going to do, and have a plan so that now you can go on when you put your street clothes on. Now you can go be that husband or father or mother or daughter or girlfriend or whatever it is, and try to play those roles effectively. And when you start to think about it, you can go back to remind, hey, you got a plan. Just stick with where you are. You be in the moment right here. You can do some little things that can make a difference for you.
Yeah. No, that's really good stuff. Really good stuff. I agree 100%. I want to talk about all of these books you have because you are an author of 5 books, a 6th one on the way, right? So tell us the name of your books and the one that is soon to be released. What are those about?
Yeah. So, I spent a lot of time speaking in different places and schools. And I first started off, as I said, I'm a former teacher and a coach at the middle school and high school level. And that's kind of, I have a big heart for that. And So the first book was called The 7 Secrets of Successful Coaches, and I wrote it with a colleague of mine, a buddy of mine, and it's really about the art of coaching. And kind of, I think it was a little ahead of its time, but it was how do you establish credibility with athletes? How do coaches establish that? How do coaches lose credibility? And so how do you make deposits into your credibility account, so to speak, and all the things that go into the art of coaching. And then I wrote another one for coaches. It's 101 team building activities. So things that you can use. We talk about building trust. We talk about that that we're like a family. We talk about how we got to communicate. Well, I gave them some specific things that they could do to try to help with that stuff. I wrote one for parents of athletes. It's called The Fulfilling Ride. It's a play off of The Full Ride because everybody's looking for the full ride. And but really trying to help parents play their role effectively. They do play a huge role in this. And, how do you have conversations with your kids? What do you do during competition? How do you handle it when afterwards? And I'm a big believer that you got to give them some space. The last place they want to be is with you in the car ride home when you're giving them the third degree about why they didn't play well, and try to help parents do that. I also wrote one for athletes. It's called It's a Mental Thing. Wrote that with a colleague of mine, and it's really about the mental parts of performance, not only in sport, but in everyday life, and how to develop confidence and how to learn to depend on yourself rather than other people for confidence, how to embrace pressure, how to deal with adversity, those kinds of things. And then the one I have coming out now is it's written particularly for people that move into leadership positions for the first time. That, I'm interviewing hundreds of people, asking them, what do you wish you would have known when you moved into that leadership position for the first time? And it's All Eyes Are on You. It's kind of the title, the lead title part of that. But 3 steps in the leader's journey to leadership excellence, and it's still a working title, but essentially All Eyes on You now. So now that you're in a leadership position, it's a lot of times it's all right. Now, good luck, man, go get them. And people have no clue on how to do that. So I want to help shorten that learning curve a little bit for them.
These all sound amazing. So what would you say would be your top 2 books that you would tell people to read now?
Yeah, wow. That's a great question. Well, hopefully, certainly the new one when it comes out, but I won't even count that one yet. But I would say, for adults, for sure, the 7 Secrets of Successful Coaches, that applies to the aspect of leadership, or the parent book. Yep. And for kids, definitely the It's a Mental Thing, because it'll help you not only in sport, but it'll help you in your social life. It'll help you academically, all that stuff.
You broke up a little bit when you was talking about the first one. Was it Secrets of Success?
Yeah, the 7 Secrets of Successful Coaches. I think for adults, that's a great one because it's leadership, and it applies to not just sports, but it applies to everything.
Man, this was a really good talk with you, Dr. Greg. I don't want to keep you all day. I could definitely talk to you.
I appreciate you having me. This is great.
Yeah, this is really good.
I appreciate you letting me preach for a little while too. So
absolutely,
yeah,
it was a good preach. Good.
Yeah, good.
Is there anything else that you want to leave our audience with as they move forward into their lives, whether they are a coach, an athlete, someone in business who is either already in a leadership role or trying their best to get to a level of leadership? Do you have any advice that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, we all leave a legacy, right? We all leave imprint wherever we go. And I just think that whether you're a parent, whether you're a leader, or you're a coach, whatever you are, think about how you can help other people grow and develop. That should be that should be a priority for you, is how are you helping people grow and develop? It's not about you. You can say I and my when you're taking responsibility for things, but when you're taking credit, it needs to be us and we and our. Be careful about taking credit for things when you're in a leadership position. You need to make sure that it's a we thing, and you're helping people grow and develop. It's not about you.
I love that. I love that. Because when it's not about you, it's not about you. And I think that is the perfect way to sum up what purpose is about.
Yes. That's
right.
Yes.
It's not about, you're following your purpose because someone else needs the help.
Yes.
Right. And even in that moment, it's not about you. It's not. So thank you so much for coming onto the show. Oh my God, I appreciate it. Guys, look, go and follow Dr. Greg Dale. He is on LinkedIn and Twitter. I put his link, if you're watching this video, his link is on the comments. If you are listening to this, you can follow him on Twitter at GregDale919, and then just search his name on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Sivonnia DeBarros, Protector of Athletes. This has been an amazing interview. Guys, go and check out my book, What Are You Sporting About?, which is the thing that inspired this podcast. So make sure that you listen in and tune in every week so that we can dive into some serious conversations that we all need. It was a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that I was able to help motivate, inspire you, and educate you to your next level. Thank you again, Dr. Greg, for coming on to the show. And until next time, we will see you guys later. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Sivonnia DeBarros is available for private consulting at sldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success, because we're all sporting about something.